Way back in the deep woods, there lived a scrawny old woman who had a reputation for being the best conjuring woman in the county. Her bedraggled black and gray hair, funny eyes, one yellow and one green, and her crooked old nose. Old Betty was not a pretty picture, but she was the best there was at making up potions to fix the sick folk, and that was all that counted. Old Betty's house was full of herbs and roots and bottles filled with conjuring medicine. The walls were lined with strange books brimming with magical spells. Just about the only friend that old Betty had was a tough, mean, ugly old razorback hog that ran wild around her place. It rooted so much in her kitchen garbage that all the leftover spells started affecting it. Some folks swore up and down that the old razorback hog sometimes walked upright like a man. One fellow claimed he had seen the pig sitting on the rocker in old Betty's porch, chatting away to her while she stewed up some potions in the kitchen. But everybody disbelieved that story, as the fellow who told it, well, he's a little too fond of moonshine. The old razorback hog kept following old Betty around her little cabin, and it even walked to town with her when she came to the local merchant store to sell her home remedies. Well, folks in town got so used to seeing old razorback hog and old Betty round town, so it looked mighty strange one day when old Betty came to the local merchant without him. "Where's old Razorback?" the owner asked as he accepted her basket full of home remedy potions. "I ain't seen him round today, and I'm mighty worried. Have you seen him here in town?" "Nobody's seen him around today. They'd have told me if they did," the merchant said. "We'll keep a lookout for you." "That's mighty kind of you." The merchant nodded and handed over her weekly pay. Old Betty worried all the way home. It wasn't like old Razorback to disappear, especially not on the day that they went to town. The local merchant always saved the best scraps of food for the mean old Razorback, and the hog never missed a visit. When the old conjuring woman got home, she mixed up a potion and poured it onto a flat plate. "Where's that old hog got to?" she asked the liquid. It clouded over, and then a series of pictures formed. First, old Betty saw the good-for-nothing hunter that lived on the next ridge sneaking round the forest, rounding up hogs that didn't belong to him. One of the hogs was Betty's. Then she saw her old razorback hog slaughtered with the rest of the pigs and hung up for gutting. The final picture in the liquid was the pile of old bloody bones that had once been her hog, and his head lying with the other hogs' heads in a pile. Old Betty was infuriated by the death of her only friend. It was murder to her, plain and simple. Everyone in 3 counties knew that old Razorback was her friend, and that lazy, hog-stealing, good-for-nothing hunter was going to pay for slaughtering him. Now, old Betty tried to practice white conjuring most of the time, but she knew the dark secrets too. She pulled out an old secret book her granny had given her and turned to the very last page. And then she began a chant. "Razorback and bloody bones, razorback and bloody bones." The light from the windows disappeared as if the sun had been snuffed out like a candle. Dark clouds billowed into the clearing where old Betty's cabin stood, and the howl of dark spirits could be heard in the wind that pummeled the treetops. "Razorback and bloody bones, razorback and bloody bones." Betty continued to chant until a bolt of silver lightning left the plate and streaked out through the window, heading in the direction of her hog. When the silver light struck old Razorback's severed head, which was piled on the hunter's wagon with the other hogs' heads, it tumbled to the ground and rolled until it was touching the bloody bones that once inhabited his body. As the hunter's wagon rumbled away toward the ridge where he lived, the enchanted old Razorback hog called out, "Bloody Bones, get up and dance." Immediately, Bloody Bones reassembled themselves into the skeleton of a hog walking upright. The head hopped on top of his skeleton, and the old Razorback went searching through the woods for weapons to use against the hunter. He borrowed the sharp teeth and claws of a dead bear and put them in his head and bloody bones. Then old Razorback headed up the track looking for the hunter who had slaughtered him. Old Razorback slid into the barn, He climbed up into the loft and waited for the hunter to come home. It was dusk when the hunter drove into the barn and unhitched his horse. The horse snorted in fear, sensing the presence of old Razorback in the loft. Wondering what was disturbing his usually calm horse, the hunter looked around and saw a large pair of eyes staring down at him from the darkness in the loft. Feeling a little spooked, he hurried to the door and let himself out the barn. The old Razorback slipped out the loft and climbed down the side of the barn behind him. He raced through the trees and up the path to a large moonlit rock, hid in the shadow of a huge stone, so the only things showing were his gleaming yellow eyes and bear claws. When the hunter came level with a rock on the side of the path, he gave a startled yelp. The hunter took to his heels and ran for his cabin, raced past the woodpile, over the rotten fence and into his yard. But old Razorback was faster. When the hunter reached his porch, old Razorback leapt from the shadows and loomed above him. The hunter stared up in terror at the hog's gleaming yellow eyes, his bloody bone skeleton with its long bare claws and gleaming sharp teeth. The hunter gasped desperately, "What you got those big teeth for?" He stumbled backwards from the terrible figure before him. "To eat you up like you wanted to eat me," old Razorback roared, descending upon the good-for-nothing hunter. The hunter gave one long scream in the moonlight. There was silence, and the sound of crunching. Nothing more was ever seen or heard of the lazy hunter. His horse also disappeared that night, but sometimes folks said they'd seen old Razorback roaming through the forest in the company of his friend old Betty. And once a month on the night of the full moon, old Razorback would ride the hunter's horse through the town.